I am Shoneq, chieftain of the Red Clay tribe, son of Buchurk and Lali, younger brother of Utek. This is a story that I've been trying to keep hidden from my son Moshe, until he was old and experienced enough to lead the tribe. It still haunts me to this day. I don't know what I saw that night. I just know it wasn't from this world. I remember it clear as day. My son has heard glimpses from other people who have experienced it firsthand after the wake of said story. Now he has gotten curious. He asks for the story whenever it is time to rest. I shudder to myself and dread washes over my body like water from a cool lake. He takes notice of my hesitation each time and doubts silently about my capability to lead the tribe, influencing him. I was supposed to be the chieftain, a symbol of survival and bravery. How scary could this story possibly be? He asks me from time to time. Oh my boy, it's bad. If animals could understand our tongue, even the bravest of one-horns would run the other direction. Since Moshe isn't here right now, I will tell you this story, and it begins like this. Many moons ago, the tribe was starving. The cold times were approaching. I could feel it in the air and in the environment around me. There weren't any patches of white, but I knew I would see it sooner or later. My father, who was a chieftain at the time, told me, Utek, and a couple of male family friends to fetch something for the tribe to eat. So we gathered our spears and set off. We didn't know if we would come back alive or not. We just knew that the tribe was relying on us to survive. Before we go any further, let's talk about Utek. Between me and him, Utek was always more gruff and serious. He didn't speak much and was a bit hard on me at times, but was out of a place of love. He wanted to prepare me for the world just in case he wasn't there anymore. He was also known to be blunt and prefer to be alone. Now, he may seem like this no-nonsense guy, but one thing that stuck with me was the fact that he was superstitious. Every time he left the hut, he would knock on the frame of the exit 3 times. No one else did it. It was just him. It was weird, and people made fun of him for it, me included. I questioned him on the matter once, and he said it was because it brought him good luck and protected his soul, whatever that meant. Since he was the leader of the hunting group, we all had to watch this serious man knock on a door frame 3 times before motioning us to follow him. We walked, the sight of our tribe on the hill getting smaller and smaller as we trekked through the taiga. It took many days of travel, but we got to our ideal hunting spot, a plain area with one of those dangerous black puddles in the middle of it. We saw a herd of big tusks returning after their stay in the farther warm lands, a flock of terror beaks searching for animals in the brush, and fanged pouncers basking on rocks, yawning away their tiredness. Our main targets were the white antlers that usually graze in this area. 2 kills were our goal. It could last us around 4 moons, more than enough to last us through the cold times. We scouted and singled out the weakest individuals, masking our scent with animal droppings we rubbed on our bodies, as we ventured closer and closer to our targets. We crawled, holding our breaths as we saw and ambushed the weakest links. We raised our spears and killed a female white antler. In the heat of the moment, our group split as we attempted to go for a larger male amongst the sea of fleeing animals, and we found our target. An elderly male individual, one of antlers so large they could protect you from the beaming sun if you sat under them. We gave chase and cornered him against some trees, but the old buck waved his mighty antlers in warning. Our group and I quietly debated amongst ourselves on what to do next, not wanting to lose the opportunity to kill and harvest this great animal. As we talked, Utek, being the bravest, suddenly charged in without a plan, eager to eat and get this hunt over with. As he jammed his spear to the shoulder of the white antler, the buck let out a mighty screech as the animal raised itself on his hind legs, attempting to shake Utek off. Utek still holding onto the spear, as he remained determined to kill the animal. Eventually, the animal succeeded in shaking him off and Utek let go, dropping onto the ground. The elderly white antler stared down my fallen brother and proceeded to stomp and gore him with his hooves. I watched in shock and stood there, frozen in fear as I watched my own brother get attacked right in front of me. It wasn't until one of the hunters in our group nudged my shoulder as they regained focus and attempted to prod and poke the white antler, finally convincing him to stop his attack and flee. I rushed over to my injured brother, blood leaking from his mouth as he struggled to get up. He looked at me with a face that scolded me for being a coward. He went limp, and he died in my arms. The hunting group and I stayed silent. I looked at his dead face. His eyes were half-lidded, blood and bruises covered his face, and some of his teeth were missing from his maw. I was taught by my parents that death was peaceful, but even in spirit, my brother still looked like he would smack me upside the head for being out of line. We decided to bury him in the forest in a crude dirt grave. It was an awkward, regretful, and silent walk back home as we dragged the corpse of the dead female white antler back to our tribe. Our hunting trip tragically cut short. This one individual won't last us through the cold times. It was inevitable that we would hunt again for bigger prey. But what exactly? Along the way back, we managed to kill some horned vermin and rainbow flyers, but these were more like snacks. Halfway through our journey, one of our male family friends, I think his name was Finn, stopped us and said that we needed to hunt the injured male, as he couldn't have gotten far. But I argued it was too late and there's no point in turning back. He reluctantly agreed as we walked continuously, days passing by in a blur. I didn't even notice my feet were bleeding, having been preoccupied with my brother's death. Even though the journey was a long one, there was one thing I do remember greatly. When we walked, I remember there was a rotting corpse of a deceased other man. Other men were a group of people that looked like us, but were shorter, more muscular, had very different faces from us, having more noticeable chins and brows. I met them on a couple of occasions, often being met with aggression, but I looked at this dead individual and he had a striking resemblance to my brother. Same intense gaze, even in spirit. I shook off the familiarity, blaming it on my grief. I also saw a strange symbol on his wrist, but I didn't think much of it. When we finally got back to the tribe, I saw my father waiting for us. We approached, showing off our quarry. A female white antler, 5 horned vermin, and 12 rainbow flyers. He questioned, "You're here early. Do you think this will be enough to feed the tribe?" I looked at my hands, still stained with remnants of Utek's blood, before looking back at my fellow hunters, their faces varying from shame to hints of sadness. I then mournfully told my father our hunting trip was cut short. Utek died from a white antler and we had to bury him. I'm sorry our quarry isn't that plentiful, I said, wiping away tears I didn't even know that were streaming down my face. My father stayed silent before he embraced me. We cried together, mourning his loss, and the rest of the tribe joined suit, mourning the loss of my older brother. The rest of the week consisted of a ceremony and preserving the food for their cold times. Cut to a week or so later, white patches are slowly starting to appear like they always do during this time of year. I have mostly accepted that my brother is gone and can't be brought back. I'm sitting outside of my hut, crafting a spearhead and jabbing it into the ground mindlessly, having nothing else better to do. I thoughtlessly look out into the distance, and my eyes widen. I see a familiar figure approaching our tribe. I set my spearhead down, my legs wobbly as I struggle to stand up properly. It's Utek. I yell out his name, but silence follows. I yell out again. He only lets out a disoriented yell in response. Other curious tribespeople look to hear the commotion and notice him, as they don't believe it themselves. It really is Utek. He's back. Once he's close enough, my father and mother hug him, the tribespeople surrounding the allegedly killed man. I look from the outside of the circle, and that's when reality hits me. It shouldn't be possible. I saw him die. We buried him. I push through the questioning tribespeople as I finally meet my brother face to face again. I hug him tightly as I then tearfully ask, "Utek, how are you alive? I saw you get killed by that white antler." He looks at me and chuckles before stating, "Oh, come on. You think some white antler is going to take you down, your big brother?" Reality hits me again. He laughed. He rarely laughs. He would never laugh in a situation like this. And when I notice that small detail, I take a look at his body. He's completely free of wounds, looking like he never went out that fateful day. I attempt to push aside these thoughts, trying to stay happy that my brother is still alive. The tribe and I celebrated his return, blessing him with strength and longevity. We ate, but still try to be meager in our portions due to our limited supply. But Utek insisted, and we ended up eating a little more than we should have. I quietly watched from the sidelines, suspicion growing again. Did my brother become a different person while he was gone? Utek would never eat this much. Hell, he would eat the least if it meant others who were weaker and more deserving would get their fill. I still denied it and slipped into my hut. wrapping my incomplete spearhead in the process. I sat on the edge of the bed, tucking the spearhead under my pillow. I thought about how weird Utek's sudden reappearance was. Maybe I dreamt the whole incident. As the partying died down, my pondering was soon interrupted by the sound of someone entering my hut. It was Utek. I froze slightly as I looked up at him. "Hello, brother. Do you need something?" I questioned sheepishly. He looked down at me and smiled widely, a little too widely for my taste. "Nothing much. I was checking on you. How is my favorite brother doing?" He sat down beside me on the bed, wrapping his arm around my shoulders. What the hell was going on? Now I'm certain something is up. He has never acted or talked this way around me before. I brush off his arm, feeling uncomfortable as I look at him. He tilted his head, not in an offended way, but more like a studying way. It was weird. He then said to me, "Is something on your mind?" He asked in an eerily monotone voice. The tonal shift catching me off guard and snapping me back to reality. I shake my head before replying, Yeah, Utek, there is something. The hunting group we were in, we all saw you die. You died in my arms. I could feel you turn spirit. We buried you. How are you alive? Be honest with me, Utek." He stayed silent, looking at me with a blank face before smugly saying, "As I said, no white antler is killing me. I probably got knocked out and you thought I died and buried me." He stretched his arms above his head, yawning while doing so. I looked at his arm and spotted that same strange symbol I saw in the other man. Not only was he acting prideful, an emotion foreign to him, but now I see this symbol again. Something was up. And if any of these things didn't convince you, this last part will. When he left my hut, he didn't knock on the door. I blurted out something I just had to. "Hey, why did you knock on the door frame?" He looked at me, confused and silent. "What?" he said as he grimaced slightly. "Every time you leave a hut, you always knock on the door frame." I added on sheepishly, waiting in anticipation for his reaction. He studied my face a bit more and then replied, "Oh yeah, right, must have forgotten. You know, be out in the woods and all of that." He knocked on the doorframe once and left my hut. That's not my brother. I don't know who I was talking to, but that was not him. I lifted my pillow and looked at the spearhead. I must complete it. Days have passed since his sudden reappearance. The people in the tribe have started to notice his strange mannerisms, or are too overfilled with relief that he's here to say anything. He now insists that he stands watch outside the huts to look out for danger. I watch him now and then. He doesn't do anything. He just stands there. He doesn't even have a weapon with him. He doesn't enter his own hut, let alone sleep. He goes away some days and returns to the tribe with a full stomach, covered in blood that isn't his own, and no quarries or trophies to back it up. I had to confront him. I grabbed my completed spearhead as I lifted the flap to my hut slightly, peeking outside to check my surroundings as I clutched my fist tightly around the spear itself. I stepped outside and began to creep around. I looked for my brother. My search cut short as I then heard distant noises. I look at the source of the noises, and I see a group of night criers surrounding a white antler. Typical behavior, I thought to myself. They need to eat too. But then I noticed something. As I walked closer to the hunting activity, something was poking out of the white antler's shoulder. It was a spear. It's him. The elder white antler. I knew they were just animals, but in this moment, I felt a quick sense of karmic retribution flow through my body. But it was quickly interrupted by an unexpected sound. Whimpering. The night criers were whimpering. Why were they scared of a white antler? I see the mutts warily circle the buck, growling and warning. The elder white antler just stood there, unmovingly. After a minute or so, it started to jerk unnaturally, its neck contorting and cracking. It startled me as I stepped back a bit in shock and revulsion. The buck then stood up on his hind legs and stayed like that, finally convincing the night criers he wasn't worth their time. I've never seen a white antler stay up on his hind legs for so long. I stared at it, time becoming a blur as I looked at this infamous buck. The buck turned its head at me at a breakneck speed, snapping me out of my haze. His eyes were weird. There was something about them. I didn't know what. I still don't know now, but something about his eyes was different. It suddenly began to walk towards me while on his hind legs, and began running. Running like a man. My eyes wide as I run away to my parents' hut. I lift the flap and then shake my father awake. Father, come quickly! My father's eyes opened groggily, sensing the urgency in my voice as he dragged his tired self up as quickly as he could. I led him to the area where I saw the white antler. When I got there, it was nowhere to be seen. In fact, all he saw was Utek walking up the hill and back to our tribe site, giving my father a nod and me a condescending smile as he walked to the huts. I was bewildered and began to explain frantically. Father, I swear I saw a white antler, the same one that killed Utek. My father smacked me upside the head. You woke me up over a buck? Unbelievable. You're not a boy anymore. Besides, Utek is alive. Stop spouting this nonsense. I then began to explain. No, that's just not it, though. I saw it scare away a pack of night criers and get up on its hind legs before walking like a human. It spotted me and began to run towards me. I swear, I'm telling the truth. My father brushed off my claims, rolling his eyes and motioning for me to go back to sleep. I reluctantly did, still clutching my spear as I lay in bed. The night was silent. Too silent. Usually I would hear tiny chirpers or snoring from nearby sleeping people. But there was truly nothing. I was on edge. My head turned at every rustle. I closed my eyes and blocked out any noise I heard. Relaxation excruciatingly slowly washed over me as tonight's worries would go away. No good thing lasts forever. There was a scream similar to my father's. I immediately got up and rushed towards his hut. I opened the flap and my eyes widened in horror. It was my brother, all bloody and crouching over the corpses of my father and mother, tearing at their flesh, playing with their intestines, and squeezing them like toys. He didn't notice me at first, chewing and gnawing on their fresh bodies. He didn't eat like a human. He was otherworldly. He leaned down to rip at my mother's face and tore off something. He turned his head completely towards me, while his body remained unmoving, my mother's tongue dangling out of his mouth in a cruel display of mockery as he smiled sinisterly. Can I cut your tongue? Shock and sadness turned to rage. I wouldn't hesitate as I did in the past. Tongue, sorry. I stumbled over my words, but my intentions were clear. I was going to kill my brother, regardless of whether it was him or not. I jammed the spear into his back and he let out an abnormal, deafening scream as he tried to get me off, but he failed. I stabbed him repeatedly in the back, yelling and crying, hate filling my body as I attacked the sad excuse of a mimic of my brother, not caring if I would survive or not. I had to get my message across. He threw me out of the hut, making me roll on the grass as I quickly got up, backing away slightly as I prepared to defend myself. A nearby campfire illuminated the hut he was in, and he grew in size. His limbs and neck got longer and more grotesque. As he stood to his full height, the hut he was in rose up with him. He tore through the shelter with ease with his elongated, clawed fingers. Other tribespeople exited their huts to see what was going on, immediately seeing the monster. There was panicking, crying, yelling, and blood. The men grabbed their spears, and they tried their best. They truly did. But most got devoured or ripped apart. The monster transformed into a faint pouncer and mauled a couple of family friends. It kept changing, adapting to kill my family better. Thinking fast, I quickly grabbed a jar containing liquid I collected from the black puddles and threw it at the monster, coating it with pieces of darkness. The monster looked back to me confused, as I then threw hot coals from the campfire towards it, burning my hands in the process. The coal struck, and it lit up the night. A loud wail echoed through the sky, the monster frantically running back and forth, setting huts in the grass alight everywhere it went. The monster changed forms rapidly, cycling through transformation as it panicked, struggling to adapt to the situation. Ignoring and pushing away the survivors, the monster ran back into the forest, knocking down trees and setting them on fire with the liquid it was doused in, never to be seen again. I never knew what I saw that night, nor did I even ever want to imagine it again. I was made chieftain due to me killing the monster, being the only member of my father's family alive, his next of kin by process of elimination. Few of us are left, but we're slowly regaining our numbers. I don't deserve this title. Utek was more deserving. I made the journey alone back to my brother's burial site and undug him from the earth. His corpse was gone. I explored the area and eventually found his body, decaying and charred. But for some reason, with that symbol on his wrist still visible in the fight, if anything, it looked like it was just recently engraved. But I don't care. That's in the past now. He's dead and won't bring him back. I'm positive the monster is gone. Positive that the cruel being who took the visage of my beloved brother is burned to ashes. And if the monster returns somehow, taking a new deceptive form, I won't hesitate to burn him alive again. Because you could be like man, but you could never experience man.